business news, we're news for business people.
Good morning, you're watching Daybreak on Bloomberg Quint Live and I'm Alex Matthew. These are the headlines. Asian markets move higher led by technology stocks, an account of Japan which returns to trade after a holiday on Monday. Officials from North and South Korea meet face to face for the first time in 2 years as the Winter Olympics draws near. The Telecom Commission will meet today to try and finalize its recommendation on a relief package for the sector. And Tata Motors will be in focus today after Jaguar Land Rover records its highest ever annual sales despite a muted December. The company also warns of a tough environment in the UK. Let's turn to international markets now. The S&P 500 and Nasdaq both rose for the fifth straight session on Monday, setting fresh records. The Dow, however, ended slightly lower. Bloomberg's Abigail Doolittle tells you what happened in that session in this report.
It was a mixed close for the major averages in Monday's Wall Street session. The S&P 500 and the Nasdaq finished slightly higher, the Dow fractionally lower, but all three indexes did put in all-time highs. Now, in fact, the S&P 500 and the Nasdaq closing at record highs. Tech, one source of strength. In fact, the Nasdaq up the most of the three majors, up about 0.3%, a small gain, but relative to that tech strength, the FANG stocks, or the big internet names, Facebook, Amazon, Netflix, and Alphabet helping. We had some strength as well from some of the chip makers, including NVIDIA, up about 3% on the news. The company's AI technology will be used by Volkswagen and Uber in self-driving cars. Now, again, the gains weren't big, and some big laggards stand out, including GoPro, down more than 30% at the lows as the action and adventure camera maker slashed the fourth quarter revenue view. They also cut the workforce. Pandora and Snap lower as well on Wall Street downgrades. Now, speaking of lower, Bitcoin fell on the day, down about 17% at the lows. Continued uncertainty around what's next for the cryptocurrencies. And the cryptocurrencies, of course, are an alternative to fiat currencies. The dollar, one such fiat currency, up for its second time this year, up about 0.25% overall, and even with the all-time highs for the major averages, those gains were very small. The risk appetite was mainly neutral in Monday's Wall Street session. In New York, Abigail Doolittle, Bloomberg News.
Now, South and North Korea are holding their first official face-to-face talks today after 2 years, with hopes that the discussion could ease tension in the peninsula. All parties involved have been on edge on account of Pyongyang's nuclear weapons program. Bloomberg's Stephen Engel, who is near Panmunjom, wraps up all the details in this report.
We just had what looked like a couple of Apache helicopters fly over. This is the DMZ behind me, the demilitarized zone, and this is the reunification bridge that heads into the DMZ and the JSA, the Joint Security Area that is, of course, demilitarized and jointly controlled by North and South. And within that is the Peace Village of Panmunjom, where they're going to have at the Peace House these talks that I've been told have or should have started right at the top of the hour, the first direct face-to-face discussions since December of 2015. So it's quite significant. The scene here is this way. If you go through here, that takes you across the bridge into the DMZ. This way over here are the tour groups, which have been coming by consistently from Seoul for tourists to see the DMZ. No such luck to get into Panmunjom right now. That is highly sensitive, as they're going to be discussing a range of issues to propel peace, of course, on the Korean Peninsula. It's an open-ended agenda. At the top, though, is the possibility, at least an olive branch or an opening for the South to allow the North to compete in the Olympics as one Korean team. It's not set in stone. We don't know if that will happen, but at least that is a way to get the two sides to talk and have this openness period in the month running up to the Olympics, which start in Pyeongchang to the southeast of here 1 month from today. Basically, the South Koreans say they're going to discuss issues related to improving inter-Korean relations. That is pretty open-ended. One other possibility is the possible resumption of the shuttered Gaeson industrial complex, which was closed more than a year ago due to the tensions over the missile tests. Of course, the North Koreans have tested a number of missiles. 23 different missiles have been fired recently, over 16 different missile tests. They've, of course, had 6 nuclear tests, including the most recent one in September, believed to be, or possibly, an H-bomb. And also, of course, there were those rumors that it also caused a collapse. Again, the Hwasong 15 missile program and the successes that have been lauded by Kim Jong-un, perhaps giving the North Koreans a bit of confidence to come to the bargaining table with a few more bargaining chips. At the same time, the South Koreans are wary as well. They do not, and the United States do not want the North Koreans to try to drive a wedge between the South Koreans and the Americans.
Well, do check back later and we'll get you more updates from the meeting that's set to take place today. But on that note, let's take a closer look at the Asian markets. The Asian markets are trading in positive territory after the strong session on Wall Street. Investors in the region also digested earnings guidance from tech heavyweight Samsung Electronics and are keeping an eye on the talks, as we said, between North and South Korea. Let's go across to Bloomberg's Rosalind Chin, though, that she's live with all the updates from Asia. Rosalind?
Certainly, as you say, those talks between North and South Korea are being keenly watched. And we saw the South Korea bond risk fall to the lowest in nearly 10 months ahead of those talks starting. Now, we are seeing the Kospi pull higher. This hour is up by 0.36% right now. And it's really gains in telecoms and health sectors which are helping that pull higher, managing to ignore less as good as expected results from Samsung for the fourth quarter. Now, Samsung actually makes up about 20% of the Kospi, so it actually is a big heavyweight there and does impact the Kospi quite heavily. They are seeing that operating profit came in at 15.1 trillion won against estimates of 16.1 trillion won, so a little bit of a miss there for Samsung. Samsung seeing that its chip division may not fare so strongly in the future. Now, the chip division has been a cash cow for Samsung. It has been what has been driving the company to record profits in the last year or so, despite all its problems with its leadership, despite the fiasco with its exploding phones just over a year ago. The chip division has remained strong. But now, even Morgan Stanley called it back in November, the market for chips is weakening very slightly. Prices not as strong as they used to be, and that could affect Samsung into the future. So we're seeing Samsung down by about 1.7% right now. And of course, the won is a big factor as well. The won, of course, was Asia's best performing currency last year. Samsung gets about 87% of its sales from abroad, so won is going to eat into its profits there. And it did say that that is one of the issues for its current results. So Kospi is still pulling higher despite these less than stellar results from Samsung Electronics. Elsewhere, we've also had some numbers out of Japan. The labour cash earnings finally showing signs of upward movement. Shinzo Abe considers that one of the key elements of displaying that Japan has actually got traction when it comes to its economic expansion, and finally it's seeing some increase in its wages there. So that is good news for Japanese stocks, and that is partly why we're seeing them pull higher. The Nikkei and Topix both trading higher this hour. Back to you.
Thanks so much for that, Rosalind. Let's move over to the Indian markets now, and Darshan Mehta and Agam Vakil are here as usual to set you up for the day's trade and also to tell you what's happening in the futures and options space. Morning, guys. First to you, Darshan. Momentum set to continue today?
Yeah, you're right, Alex, because both the commodity markets and equity markets are doing quite well, because if you're looking at the SGX Nifty, that indicates a positive outlook at this point of time. We closed at record highs yesterday, so the momentum certainly is continuing for the SGX Nifty. If you're looking at most of the ADRs, they ended with the positive bias. Wipro was the one that moved significantly. It was up almost 2%, so ADRs did well in trade. What didn't do well was Dr. Reddy's as well as HDFC Bank. HDFC for the second day in a row is seeing a little bit of pressure that's coming in. As far as crude is concerned, crude gained on as much as 0.6% on Monday. As far as today's trading is concerned, it's holding close to the $68 barrel per mark in trade. So crude is doing well. As far as commodities are concerned, positive close for base metals on the LME, except for aluminium, which was trading with a negative bias. All the other commodities did well. So lead, copper, nickel, all of them gained in trade. Zinc, tin, and even COMEX copper is currently trading with a positive bias. As far as Chinese equity commodities are concerned, it's a positive opening by commodities in China. Steel is trading up almost 4%. Aluminium is trading rather weak. But apart from it, the other commodities are trading with a positive bias. Gold opens muted in opening trade currently. As far as gold, the fund flows are concerned, FI is bought in almost 693 crores in the cash market. Yesterday, provisional data. DIs have been active sellers. They sold in 206 crores in the cash market. So on a month-to-date basis, FIs have net buyers to the tune of 2,000 crores and DIs are net sellers to the tune of almost 1,200 crores in the cash market. Now, overall for the Nifty, it gains for the fifth session and trades at record highs. And the closing was also at record highs. But again, the broader markets seem to be outperforming the Nifty. So the smaller and the mid-cap stocks are doing extremely well. Pharma as well as FMCG were the two counters which gained significantly in trade. In terms of contribution, 65 points up on the Nifty. What contributed? The heavyweights, Infosys, L&T, HDFC as well as ITC. What didn't do well? Bharti Airtel continues to fall in trade post the Jio tariff cut. HDFC Bank and ONGC were the other counters which contributed negatively to the Nifty. But overall, a strong session. Agam, we closed at record highs. I guess put writers must be now shifting positions to 10,600 now.
They are, as a matter of fact, Darshan. Certainly, as you pointed out, we are looking at new lifetime highs. When it comes to the Nifty futures, again, more addition towards longs. And similarly for the Nifty Bank futures as well, we are looking at a more accumulation. In fact, 18% added as far as open interest is concerned. Moving on with respect to the India Volatility Index, that has also inched up higher. Do remember, this could also partially mean that this is on account of the expansion in premiums that we've seen in calls. That said, of course, we are at precarious levels when it comes to the Nifty put call ratio. So currently standing at around 1.63. Let's take a look at the changes in open interest that we've seen yesterday, given the fact that the Nifty has moved up. And as Darshan was pointing out, we have seen more writing and more activity around the 10,600, where we have seen more put writers coming along. And of course, 10,500 continues to see more put writing. So these are the two levels that we are watching out for in today's day of trade. That said, moving in, what are we keeping an eye on? Changes, new stocks in ban will include Reliance Capital and Wockhardt, and many more changes. So we have Reliance Power, which moves out of the ban. So we can expect trade to resume into normalcy there. And of course, we have RBL Bank, which has seen fresh longs there, along with RBL Bank, Mindtree as well. In fact, 26% added as far as its open interest is concerned. So a lot of stocks out there to watch out for. But I think the most crucial point today will be whether or not the Nifty can hold on to the 10,600 mark. Sure, we have seen, the Nifty move above that, but we've also seen a lot of writing with puts, which means the put call ratio is at 1.63, and historically that means that there could be some amount of correction. So we'll have to wait and watch for that one.
Thanks so much for that, Agam. Let's move on to the rupee and the bond market now, and Saloni Dhanuka is here to tell you all about those two markets and what to expect today. Saloni?
Good morning, Alex. So the rupee yesterday retreated from its near 3-year high and ended lower by 14 paise at 63.51 levels against the dollar. Now this move comes on the back of fresh dollar demand by exporters. By importers amid concerns over the sluggish outlook for economic growth. Now, strong dollar overseas along with rising crude oil prices largely weighed on the rupee. On the global front, Asian currencies were trading lower, with Philippine peso and Singapore dollar losing the most. Well, the dollar index rose to more than a 1-week high and jumped above the crucial 92 mark, helped by a pullback in euro as investors took profits after the common currency's recent rally. Now, euro broke below the 1.2 mark against the dollar as political risk returns to Eurozone with anxiety over Italy's March elections. Now coming back home, dollar rupee is trading at 63.46 levels against the dollar in the non-deliverable forward market, which indicates a flat to positive opening for the Indian rupee in today's trade. Well, moving on to bond market, the sovereign bonds declined yesterday and the yields on 10-year bond increased by 5 basis points at 7.34%. And also Mr. Ajay Manglunia, the head of fixed income at Edelweiss believes that the market will remain volatile till Feb 1, that is till Union Budget, which clarifies government stance on fiscal deficit for the next fiscal year. Well, global funds increased their Indian debt holdings yesterday. They infused close to 800 crores according to NSDL data, Alex.
Thanks, Saloni, for that. Let's move over to the commodities market now, and Jayesh Khilnani has all the updates from that market. Morning, Jayesh.
Morning, Alex. Let me start off with oil prices, which have seen an extension of the rally that we had for last week. So Brent for the moment has surpassed the 68 per barrel mark, and WTI trading comfortably above the 62 mark. Now, oil has extended gains on account of some geopolitical concerns arising out of Iran, and the WTI rally can be attributed to the US oil rig count, which has come in at the lowest level since the month of November. So that's the positive coming in for oil prices. As far as base metals are concerned, the LME base metal index closed flat. However, there was plenty of movement among individual base metals. So aluminium was the only decliner. It fell about 1% on account of the annual reweighting of the commodity funds that takes place. So that was down 1%. Zinc was up about 1%. Now we understand that there was jump in orders to withdraw the metal from LME on Friday. So that was up 1%. Lead was the best performer, which was up over 2%, and we had copper, nickel and tin, which also advanced on LME. Now if you look at the Shanghai Futures Exchange, most of these base metals are trading with a positive bias, except for aluminium, which is down about 1.5%. As far as precious metals are concerned, we are seeing some bit of softness come about for gold prices on account of the dollar index, which has gained the most in about 3 weeks, while the euro has also stumbled down.
Thanks, Jayesh, for that. Let's move on. The Supreme Court has referred a plea seeking the review of Article 377 of the Indian Penal Code to a larger bench. The article criminalizes intercourse between two individuals of the same sex. Arpan Chaturvedi gets us all the details in this report.
So this new petition, which has been filed in the Supreme Court, comes in the background of the Apex Court's judgment last year in the right to privacy matter, where they held by a majority of 9-0 that privacy is a fundamental right. And in that judgment also, Justice Chandrachud's judgment refers to the fact that an individual's sexual choices are also covered under right to privacy. And today what this petition again says is that the Supreme Court's earlier judgment in the Kaushal case, where they upheld the constitutionality of Section 377, which criminalizes homosexuality and certain other acts between consenting heterosexual adults as well. The Supreme Court has been asked by the petitioners that after the right to privacy judgment, that Kaushal judgment has been overturned, and that also the Section 377 should be described as unconstitutional and struck down. Now remember, in the Kaushal's case, the review petition is already pending with the Apex Court. This new petition was also filed. What the Supreme Court has done today is that it has issued notice to the central government, which in effect is asking the central government for their stance, and the Apex Court has agreed to hear this matter, which will now be referred to a constitution bench, which will decide on the constitutionality of Section 377.
Now, the Telecom Commission meets today to discuss a relief package for the sector. The interministerial group has already submitted its proposal to bail out the sector, which has seen intense competition over the past 15 months or so. Birthday boy Somit Sarkar is here with a list of some of the recommendations that could come up in the discussion today. Happy birthday, Somit.
Thank you, Alex. So to start with, out of the 4 important announcements that could come in today, the first one is extension of spectrum payment period to 16 years. Now, currently the rule is to pay the 50% upfront payment on whenever you purchase the spectrum in the auction. Post that, the telecom companies get a 2-year moratorium period, and then the balance 50% is to be paid over the period of 10 years. So the telecom companies want this 10 years to be extended to 16 years. Now, the sector has close to around 2.9 lakh crore rupees of deferred spectrum liability, with Vodafone, Airtel and Idea owning the majority of the portion. Now, the extension of this timeline will increase the cash flows of the telecom companies and help them manage their capital expenditure in a better manner. And it will also reduce the liability burden that will because they'll have a longer period to pay the same amount of money. The second that would come in is to lower the interest rate that is charged on penalties. Now, currently the interest rate charged on penalties on the prime lending rate. Now, SBI is RBI's benchmark prime lending rate is at 13.7 and telecom companies want this to be changed to MCLR. So MCLR is around 7.95. So there could be some interest cost saving that would come in for these telecom companies. The third is the proposal to relax the spectrum cap. Now they want to relax the overall spectrum holding norms to 35% and want to remove this circle-wise band spectrum. Now currently the rule is, according to the merger and acquisition guidelines, a merged entity cannot hold more than 25% spectrum, overall spectrum, and the individual band is around 50% on band and circle. Now if this rule comes in, it will be a big positive for Vodafone Idea merger, because the combined entity breaches the 50% cap in 5 circles and in 2 bands. Now in 900 megahertz band, they have excess spectrum in Maharashtra, Gujarat, Kerala, Haryana and Uttar Pradesh West. And while in 2500 megahertz band, they have excess spectrum in Maharashtra and Gujarat. Now the combined value of this spectrum is close to 6,000 to 7,000 crore rupees, according to multiple brokerage reports. Now this is a substantial benefit that will come in for the merged entity. Lastly, 100% FDI in the telecom sector. This will be beneficial only if a new foreign investment comes in the sector.
Right, Somit, thanks for that. On to the stock of the day now. Pennar Engineered was in focus on Monday after trading in multiple block deals. Nikki Mirchandani has more on that stock. Nikki?
Hi Alex, a couple of block deals for this company. 4.5%, roughly 4.5-5% stake has been exchanged in these block deals. If you look at the first, Crest Capital, that's an investment which is bought in 0% stake, 0.8% stake in the company for a sum of around 3 odd crore. Ganesh Trading Investment has also bought in 0.9% stake in this counter for 3.5 crore. You have Zephyr Peacock India Fund that has bought in 2.6% stake in this company for around a 9.9 odd crore. And also today the company is expected to meet couple of other fund houses like DSP Backrock, Maybank, Aditya Birla Sun Life, AMC and Kotak Mahindra Bank. So you can expect some sort of reaction coming in for this counter. If you look at the shareholding pattern back in December, promoter holding stood at 63% while the public shareholding stood at 37%. Promoter has been riding the stake substantially in the company. Back in June the stake was 62.6% and now it has risen to 63.5%. Financial of the company seem to be decent enough. If you look at the 5-year CAGR, both for sales as well as the bottom line, that's the profitability, you would see a good 15 to 20% growth in CAGR on 5-year basis for this company. This company, just to give you a rundown of what the company is, it's to design, manufacture and supply pre-engineered steel building and has a market capitalization of less than 500 odd crore.
Right, we'll leave it at that, Nikki. Thanks for that. Let's move on to the other stocks in news. In fact, there are quite a few to tell you about, and Shraddha Babla is here to do just that. Morning, Shraddha.
Morning, Alex. To start off with, NMDC will be in focus as the government will divest 1.5% stake in the company via an OFS to raise up to 750 crores. More importantly, the OFS floor price has been set at 153.5. That's about 4 to 5% discount to yesterday's closing price. So we might see some pressure on this stock. You also have Max India, which will be in focus, and this will be on the back of an ET report which says that Radiant is looking to buy Max Healthcare's stake, and talks are said to be at an early stage for Life Healthcare's 9.7% stake in Max Healthcare. So keep an eye out for Max India. You have another ET report which says that Vedanta is leading the race for electro steels with the highest offer, and which was ahead of Tata Group's bid. So Vedanta's bid was said to be worth about 4,500 crores, whereas Tata Group's bid was said to be worth about 3,500 crores. So keep an eye out for those names. Some update with respect to Tata Motors JLR numbers. So December JLR sales were up just 0.6% on a year-on-year basis, but full year JLR sales were up about 6.5% to a record 6.2 lakh units. Having said that, the company did warn that it faces tough conditions in its home market, which is UK, on account of weakening consumer demand and a planned diesel tax. So let's see how Tata Motors reacts. Aarti Drugs is another one that we're tracking. Now Now, the company has approved a buyback of about 2.75 lakh shares, and that will be at a price of 875 per share. Another smaller company, Satluj Textiles, could be on the investor radar as well. They're going to set up a polyester stable fiber manufacturing plant in J&K. They've also said that they've deferred plans for expansion of its Baddi facility due to uncertain market conditions with respect to the yarn segment, to keep an eye out on that name. And lastly, in the back of bulk deals, we're tracking Sobha, where Adavi Investment Holdings has completely exited its investment in Sobha. They sold 4.3% stake via bulk deal yesterday. So these are some of the stocks investors need to track.
Right, Shweta. So clearly, those are the stocks that you have to watch out for. But there are also a couple of brokerage reports and brokerage calls to tell you about. Somit's back to tell you about those. Somit?
So on the big brokerages, first we have is Macquarie initiating coverage on ICICI Lombard General Insurance. Now they have initiated coverage with an underperform rating and a target price of 565, which suggests a potential downside of 33%. Now the business offers a large opportunity and growth should not be a problem due to the underpenetrated insurance market, but it is the competition which is a big pain point according to Macquarie when it comes to ICICI Lombard General Insurance. Now because of the price competition, the company suffers underwriting losses, and however this underwriting losses are offset by a large float profit of around 3.5 to 4 times. Now there's a lag between the premium collection and the claim settlement, coupled with higher interest rate, which makes the business feasible to make profits for the shareholders even while the company is making underwriting losses. Now the brokerage is expecting the insurance company's premium to grow at a compounded annual growth rate of 21% over FY17 to FY20. However, improving the quality of the profit would be challenging for the company, according to Macquarie. Now, the proposed Motor Vehicle Act would boost the underwriting profitability, but could keep the float profit into problem. Lastly, the brokerage is saying that the current valuations leave no upside when it comes to ICICI Lombard General Insurance. Second, we have is Edelweiss investment on Deepak Nitrite. Now, they have initiated coverage on the stock with a buy rating and a target price of 360. Now, the company has recently made its announcement to set up an acetonol phenol plant, which will revitalize the business of dynamics of the company from FY20. Now, the Deepak Nitrite has invested close to 1400 crore rupees in the plant and is expected to commence production by the first quarter of financial year 2019 with nearly 65% utilization levels. The company is set to reap benefits of this capacities as well as performance products. Now, the brokerage is expecting spectacular revenue and margin growth with high utilization levels and business expansion. Now, it expects the revenue to double and margin to quadruple and the net profit to grow at a compounded annual growth rate of 38% over FY17 to FY20. Now, though the company has funded its capex by debt and its debt to equity would rise to 2 times, the company's return on capital employed will expand to 17% by FY20 versus 7% in FY17. Going forward, the company will generate strong free cash flow, which leaves ample scope for forward integration, according to Edelweiss. Lastly, the brokerage says that the valuations are low and it also has a bull case target price of 414 on the stock.
Thanks, Amit. ICICI Lombard and Deepak Nitrite there. You should watch out for those two stocks. Now, here are also a few stories that you should consider reading on the website, BloombergQuint.com. First up, two of the biggest names in financial markets are sounding warnings against complacency in the global economic outlook. After strong data and multiple stock market records in the first week of 2018, Citigroup and Pacific Investment Management have told clients of the past few days that there are still reasons to be worried. While there are causes for optimism, they cite geopolitical factors, the removal of central bank stimulus, and the risk of an inflation overshoot as possible catalysts for the end to the current economic expansion and market exuberance. Second up, provisions in the first information report filed against Tribune journalist Rachna Khaira for her report exposing vulnerabilities in Aadhaar security failed to establish criminal intent. That's according to Supreme Court advocate Apar Gupta. Well, that's all we have time for on this edition of Daybreak, but all you need to know is up next, so do stay tuned. This is Bloomberg Quint.